Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello and welcome to Winning. I am your host, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and my guest today is a friend and also someone that I've kind of looked up to. I don't know if she knows that or not, but she does now. Jordana Jacobson. Welcome, Jor.
Thanks for having me. So exciting.
I'm so happy that you could come on. So Jordana is someone that has had multiple businesses. She currently owns Cravings, Maternity, Baby, Kids. She's the creator of Layla and Ryan, which is her own brand of clothing and accessories. She owned Sassafit Apparel, as well as a co-owner of Entrepreneur 306. So, Jor, you have a huge repertoire. I can't even say, okay, award-winning. Jordana's list of awards is like longer than a page. So I'm not even going to list those out, but she's won so many awards in many different areas. And like I said, someone that I've really looked up to in business and kind of asked a lot of questions that helped me along the way. So thank you, Jordana. I appreciate that. And why don't you just kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of where you started?
Sure. Well, I started in business almost 17 years ago now. I always wanted to own a business. I don't know if I actually knew that growing up, but looking back, all the signs were there. So I got pregnant and had a baby and was taking a year off. And I realized very, very quickly that what I thought I wanted, which was to be a stay-at-home mom, was not going to work for me. So I just came up with this idea, and I don't even know if I really thought it out, but it was like, okay, this is my time. I'm going to start a business. I have a baby. This is the perfect time.
Great timing.
Yeah. So, yeah. Right. So Ryan, my daughter, was 4 months old, and that's basically when I decided that I'm going to go for it and try it out during maternity leave. And I opened Cravings when she was 9 months old. So it took about 5 months to get going. And really that's
5 months is not very long, really. That's pretty quick. So good for you.
It isn't. Yeah. I remember it was like a week from the time that I said, yes, but I'm going to do this to incorporating was 1 week. And it was like, let's go after that. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did you find that there was a lack of baby things, or how did you start? I mean, I know that you were in that, you were immersed in that because you just had a baby, but how did you have the idea, or why did you have the idea for a baby store?
Oh, well, at the time when I was pregnant, there really wasn't anything in Saskatoon. I had actually just moved here from Alberta. So there were lots of stores in Alberta, and I would go back and visit family, and I would go and visit all these stores. And of course, I was like, why don't we have anything like this? We had big box, and that's it. And I'm talking big box, even back then, is not what it is today. So I didn't buy anything local, nothing. And I was like, why am I spending thousands of dollars and shipping? Like I was shipping cribs, dressers, strollers, car seats, you name it, across, from province to province and spending money elsewhere. And I was like, well, why don't we have anything like this here? And really that was the idea. And it just took that almost self-talk and confidence, and I ran it by my parents, and they were supportive, and I was like, hey, I'm just going to do it. And I jumped in. So,
and I feel like most of the people that I've talked to so far on the podcast and business, friends and acquaintances, it's like, we always say start with a baby step, right? But I feel like I was like you, I just hopped right into it. It was like, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it full, like bore.
Yeah. And that's the same with me. I just jump right in. It's like, if I'm doing it, let's get going.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are we waiting for? I
Yeah.
think about that time my sister-in-law was pregnant with my nephew. And I remember her going to your store and being like, there's a new store in Saskatoon. Because same thing, when she had my niece, we went to Edmonton. We like
Yeah.
all drove in the car to Edmonton and bought like a truckload of stuff and brought it back. Because
Right.
unless you went to Toys R Us, really, in our city, like that was it.
Sears. Yeah, there was
Yeah,
Sears.
Sears.
That was
Yeah.
it. Sears and Toys R
Yeah.
Us was it. So it
Yeah.
was, and I'm a shopper. I was born to shop. I love shopping, and so I can't be the only one, and Saskatoon was booming at that time. Businesses were popping up all over the place. It was the perfect timing with the right idea. And just went for it.
Well, and here you are 17 years later. And when you started, were you just Cravings, right? Were you just Cravings? The name.
We were Cravings, Maternity, and Baby when we opened.
Yeah, but now you're kids, and you've got clothes for moms, and like you're not just a baby store anymore. You've evolved so much.
We have evolved a lot. We've expanded 5 times over the years. We've added, everything for kids up to age 8. We had actually gone higher than that at one point and scaled back when we realized that wasn't going to work. So we are up to age 8 now, and we do cater to moms, after they've had baby too, because they're shopping in the store. They don't want maternity anymore, right?
No.
So we have something too that they can buy for themselves that's, not specifically maternity. So
which is great.
Yeah.
Well, and that's such a good business model because you've taken one area, maternity and baby, and now developed that into so many other things. I mean, you can go shopping. I can go shop at your store. I'm not pregnant, I don't have a baby, right? Like I can go and buy an outfit, which is awesome because it's just such an easy way to, grow your business. So that's so great that you've done that.
Yeah, and it's about retaining customers too, right? And so it's like, how can we keep them longer? Because there's a very specific time frame that we have a shopper, which is unlike a lot of other businesses. It's a very, very short time frame. And so, if they're just buying for when they're pregnant or just buying for when they have a newborn, how can we extend that? How can we get people shopping with us longer and retaining that customer base longer?
Exactly. So, building that loyalty, right? Because then you want them to come back and buy a baby gift or buy a Christmas gift or something, right? It's not just for their kids. Yeah, that's awesome. You've done such a good job at that. I know too, fitness is a huge part of your life, and you started Sask Fit apparel, and now you've sold that and moved on. But I feel like that kind of probably came out, maybe tell us about that, but I feel like that came out of something that you also enjoyed, right? Fitness and making it into clothing.
Absolutely. I mean, I said already, I love shopping. So anything I can do shopping related, I love fashion and I love fitness. And so I just kind of married the two. And at that time, I was like heavily into sort of that bodybuilding world. I did compete as a bikini competitor nationally, and I was really immersed in that lifestyle. This is back in 2015. And again, it's like, well, how can I create a business out of something that I absolutely love? And it was this idea with clothing. And so it was a brand, SKFT, Sask Fit. So it's Saskatchewan based. So it was creating that camaraderie between all different disciplines in sport, not just bodybuilding. And just, creating something that I loved and I liked wearing. And yeah, it was a great thing. It was an online business. And I know you and I have talked about the difference between, brick and mortar and online before. And so it was great, but it was maybe not exactly where I wanted to be. I loved creating the clothes. I loved the vision and like the creation of everything, but I didn't want to be packing orders. And that's sort of when I realized that maybe this wasn't where I needed to be at the time. So I did sell it.
Yeah. And you know what? Good for you for recognizing that, because so many people build something and then they're like, well, I created this, so I have to stick it out for forever or for a certain time. If you know it's not fulfilling you, like move on, right? Because you should be doing things that do fulfill you. You can't have work that, right? Having a job or having work that doesn't do anything for you, intrinsically is not worth it, for sure.
Absolutely not. if someone could pay me to design clothing, like fitness clothing all day long, well, then maybe that's something. But at the time when you have a small little business, you can't afford to just pay yourself to design clothes. So
Well, exactly. And the thing too is you're a mom, you're a friend, like you've got a whole other things in life that you want to spend time on, right? So just spend time doing things that it doesn't work for you, right? You have to just spend the time on the things that you need to, which I really appreciate that because I think it's hard to recognize that for a lot of people.
it is. Sometimes you get caught up in it for sure.
Yeah. But I think then with Ryan or Layla and Ryan, then now you've gotten something that you have that fashion and apparel and you can sell it out of your store. So now maybe you found that perfect combination, right?
It's great. It is. It's just like a little side part of Cravings, but I love shopping for it. Again, the theme of the day. But I love doing that part of it and having something that's a little bit different from other retailers. Everything is everywhere now. So to create your own, have something that's a little bit different is awesome.
Oh, exactly. And especially now, like with online shopping, right? If you're like one brand can be sold in thousands of different places. Your own brand is sold at Cravings, right? So you've created yourself a niche, and the people that like you and like your style, they come to you for that brand, right?
Yeah, it works for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Were you a kid growing up that like loved fashion? Like, were you like wearing the cool stuff when you were little? A huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudayspa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card.
Yes, I didn't have a lot of the cool stuff that maybe some of my friends had, but I was always into fashion. Like I did all the magazines and every piece of clothing was like super special to me and I always styled it and I always matched like certain things with, it was a huge deal. Fashion's always been huge for me. I just absolutely love it. So being able to tinker with that a little bit in my business is awesome.
Oh, exactly. And you're living your passion, right? So I love that. Obviously, I owned a clothing store also because I love shopping. And I was same as you. I'm like, there's a void here. Let's fill it. So I appreciate everything that you've done. And that's why maybe you didn't know, but I always kind of looked up to you because I was like, you were doing, I mean, kind of a different sector with baby and kids and maternity, but you were doing what I wanted to do, right? For women's clothing. So thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You also did some coaching for businesses when you had Entrepreneur 306. And so I think, me starting this podcast is my helping people, helping them learn those lessons that people like you and I have learned after years of business. But how did you get into that, into the helping entrepreneurs side of things?
From people asking. So I was getting asked a lot by other people. Hey, I have a question for you. Hey, do you mind looking at this for me? Can you take a look at my business plan? I was getting approached by other baby stores across Canada, friends, just random people. And I thought, hey, my time is also valuable and I do have some insight to share. So again, why not create a business and, structure it so that people hire me to help them with their business? So at that time, I was partnered with another friend and we did, coaching together. And now I've actually gone out on my own. I don't have an official business, but I do still coach a lot of different businesses, startups, people having issues maybe with marketing or whatever it is. And really specifically to retail. I found that most people who gravitate towards me are retail oriented just because of my background. But I really enjoy helping other people, helping other women. Most of 99% of the people I've ever helped are women. So I love helping them build their businesses And it's great because I get to share what I've learned over the years, and I don't have to run it. I don't have to run their business for them. I just help them. So that's the great part of it.
That's awesome though, because that is like before we started recording, I was talking to Jordana and I said, I remember when I started out, like, unless you Googled things and you got a generic answer there, or you paid some of the coaches I looked into or the programs, maybe it wasn't a specific coach, but the programs were so expensive. And I was just starting out. I'm like, I don't even know if I can pay myself, let alone pay thousands of dollars, right? But I do think that what you're doing is fantastic because having a coach and having someone that has been there, I mean, you've been through everything that you're talking about to these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Yeah. It is. I think it's super important as a business owner to find somebody, find a mentor, find another group of people who understand you, who you can bounce ideas off of. I know we did that for a while when you were living in Saskatoon. A bunch of us got together and we would just chat business and bounce ideas off each other and see what's working now. And it's so valuable to have that network.
Oh, for sure. And you don't even realize sometimes that you have it until like we got together with, like you said, other friends, and like, oh, I can't figure this out. What do I do? Or have you done this before? And it was just so refreshing to have someone that has gone through it, right? And
Absolutely.
when times were good or bad, right? I mean, I know COVID really, like, I hate the C word, I call it, but it changed so many things for so many people. And having a network of people that are going through similar things to you is so important. And being able to ask, right? Ask for help or ask for advice. It's just so important.
For sure. I mean, as business owners, we're navigating things I never even thought that I would be entertaining, during that time. It was absolutely insane. I have no other word for it, but insanity. So yeah, I leaned a lot on other people who were also going through it and just for support. It's not like anybody can help you really, right? It's just that support and knowing that you have someone to talk to, somebody's got your back. And if you do have questions, like about anything that was coming out, even from the government, everything was so confusing. It was overwhelming. Just having that was invaluable.
Yeah, I know. I remember one time talking to our group and I think maybe it was like the rent subsidy or something. I don't remember exactly, but being like, well, I got like my stuff approved. Well, I didn't get mine. And then you're like, you have that moment. Did I fill something out wrong? Did I not send something? What happened? And it was such a crazy, like, to me, the COVID year was 10 times harder than my first year of business. Like,
yeah, that was absolutely the most difficult time in business ever. I mean, and the thing is too, is that personally, there was instability too. So normally, like, you have something that's like a pillar of strength in your life. And at that time, there was like really nothing. So, you're worried about family, my parents I was worried about, or my brother or whatever. And then or my husband who's working in the hospital at the time. And then the business, and we had just moved. We moved at the end of March, right during lockdown. I didn't even know if our store would move. So, and then we were closed, obviously. So we never even got to open right away. So just all of it, there was nothing stable in my life at all. So yes, that was absolutely the most difficult time for sure.
Yeah. And you know what? I never even thought about that, but you made such a good point because everything was so wild. Like, it's not even like your personal life was normal and then it was just business. It was everything, right? So many unknowns, so many, like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone a month from now.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly did not know if we would reopen. I didn't know how long I would be able to survive without sales, right? And just having spent so much money on leaseholds for the new space, like, it was it was bad time.
Yeah, I was going to say it hit you at the worst time, really. Because had you already been established in your new space, or had it been, 6 months until you moved into your new space, like, you could have navigated a little bit easier. But now you're moving, you have no sales. what happens. Like, I remember being like, how am I going to pay my own mortgage, let alone my rent
Right.
space, right? My lease.
Yeah.
Like, it was so many things.
So
I
many
think
things.
the thing too that I don't know if it was a good thing, but we were all in that same space. Like, everyone was going through that, right?
Yeah.
The whole world.
Yeah. And I mean, there was comfort in knowing that there were other people going through that. Not that you want other people to suffer, but it's like you don't feel like you're alone in this. You know, there's so many things you do in business and you feel alone. Like this, I actually didn't feel alone. It sucked, but I didn't feel alone. So it was different that way.
Yeah, because you knew that everybody was facing the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
we were all going through it, right? Which, you're right. It when you know someone else has experienced the same thing as you, it actually makes it a little bit easier,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And I think that's why we ask for advice and we get a mentor or a coach,
Yeah.
right? Because then you're like, okay, it's not just me, it's everybody, right? And so, COVID aside, just general business, things like this, like, you can see Jordana, someone that's been in business for over 17 years and literally won pages of awards, like, struggled, right? The
Oh,
unknown. It was the unknown. And you
yeah.
made it through. And I think your space now is huge and it's beautiful. And
Thank you.
like, that's in the past, right? But still, at that
Yeah.
time, you don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And I still, there's definitely, I mean, I use this word loosely, but there's still trauma from that. Like,
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that I do, I have to check myself and be like, okay, we're okay. You're okay. Your finances are okay. But I feel like I want to hang on to everything, right? Like, I don't want to, not that I spend money carelessly, but I just want to hold on to it and for that security. Because at one time I was like, oh, I have nothing. Like, I literally, as I'm watching things dissipate in my account and trying to pay bills that people, want paid. And it was, so I have to check myself and be like, okay, it's over. You're good. Your sales are great. Like, but it's funny how it stays with you.
Yeah. And I think too, like, if you look back in history, like, I think of like my grandma who went through the depression, right? And is like, oh, we could reuse that. Oh, we could, right? And I think, grandma, just throw in the garbage. But that's what it is, right? It's that it resonates with you because at one time you couldn't throw that in the garbage. You had to reuse it, or you had to, whatever it was, right? And that, I think that's what, like, you feel. And honestly, I still wake up at 4 a.m. It's like my magic hour with worries. And then I'm like, why am I worrying about that? It's not even a thing. And like, it's past tense, right?
I didn't even think about that, about like that mentality of like, let's recycle that because we can use it 12 times again. So maybe I should start doing that at the store, take back bags that people bring in when they return and we'll recycle. No, I'm just kidding. We won't do that. But I can see how that would turn into that. Yeah.
You understand that, right? Like, I feel like this was our generation's thing that we went through, right? Was learning those hard lessons of worrying. And my dad always tells me worrying doesn't get you anywhere, but worrying, like, it doesn't help you in any way, right? And
No.
it's hard to move past that stuff, but you have to. You have to move past it and continue on, because otherwise it's a weight on you. And it feels heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I totally get you, because I was there and I'm just happy those days are gone. The sad thing is, those days aren't gone for a lot of people. A lot of industries are still struggling, are still trying to get back, right? So there's people still living it. And
there are,
I know we'll get there, but
just some industries have definitely changed, right? Like we see that in service, especially I see that. So it's taking a lot longer for some industries to bounce back.
Yeah. And I mean, someone like you with such a niche business, I feel like was almost not during that hard time, but now better off, because people are still having babies. People are still, right? And now that they're back to their normal lives and there's baby showers again and everything else, I'm glad to hear that you're on upswing and things are back to where they should be.
Yeah.
As a friend, but also as a person that has to buy a baby gift every now and again. Okay. Question about your career. Did you have a major turning point? I don't know if that was maybe when you had Ryan and you're like, I need to do this, but what was that turning point? Because you did not come from a retail background. So what was that point in your career where you were like, I'm changing directions?
That was the point when I was pregnant. So I actually came from a background of federal corrections. And so completely, obviously different from retail.
Yes.
And I worked my way into position with corrections where I was training 3 provinces. So I was a regional trainer. So I trained from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And it involved a lot of traveling. So I would go away for 2 weeks at a time, which was fine when, it was just Perry and I. And then I had a baby. We don't have any family here. It's like, how am I going to do this? I literally can't. So I either change positions within the government or I try something new. And so really that was a pivotal point for me because I really couldn't see myself doing anything different with the government. I had sort of done the positions that I was qualified for before, and I was past that, and I didn't really want to go back to doing those jobs. So I was kind of in this point in my life where I thought, I've always wanted to own a business. So now is the time because I am on mat leave. I know that I don't want to stay home full time and I have a bit of time. I feel like I thought I had time when she was 4 months old, but I'm like, I don't know how I did that, but I did it. And I thought I would try it out. And if it didn't work, it didn't work. I tried. And so, when it was time to go back and, after my maternity leave, I extended that to like a care and nurturing leave. And so that was for another 2 years, I think. And by that point, I was so deep into Cravings that I resigned from that job. So that was definitely the turning point in my career that got me into business.
And honestly, that is like a sharp left because federal corrections to a maternity store is like the farthest 2 things from each other, right?
It is the farthest. Yeah. And it's funny because when I tell people that, they're always like, really? You? Were you a guard? Everybody wants to know. So yeah, no, it was definitely a different world. And I'm happy, to have graduated and moved on from that. But I mean, I learned a lot doing that job too. And it did prepare me for things that I'm doing now. So just in a different way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, education is knowledge, right? And you never know what lessons you learn. So things you learned, maybe that's dealing with a difficult customer or something, right? Like, yeah.
I will never have as difficult customers as I did back then. So yeah.
Exactly. It's just a cakewalk now, right? But that's the thing. You learn those lessons in your, I'll say past life. I mean, I know it's this life, but in the time then that you don't even realize you're using those skills now, right?
Yeah.
Like time is never
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you learn things. Maybe that's negotiating. Maybe that things that you don't realize, but now you've used them to your benefit in your business.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So 17 years, you're on to 18. You're going on to your 18.
So we're just finishing up. Well, I guess in the new year, we'll be going on to 18.
Okay.
So,
okay.
In February.
So at what point, and I'm just assuming this, but you tell me, because when I first started, it's probably the same, but you did everything. You did everything in your business. You worked in there. You did all the marketing. You cleaned, right? You did all of the things. At what point did you go from working in your business to more working on your business? Because there is a point, right, where you step back a little bit, but you work on it and not so much physically in it. So where did that come? How did that come? Like, let's help people along the way.
Yeah. I can't really say that it was like a certain time period. I feel like it was gradual where I would let certain things go. whether it meant hiring more staff or contracting people out or whatever it was. And it would just be, it was kind of baby steps. It was a little bit at a time. And it just gave me more freedom to be the visionary that I wanted to be in my business. Because when you are so hands-on every day, that's what you're focusing on. And your head, your brain can't think the big picture and like what's next. And maybe if it does, you just don't have the energy to like really explore those things. So, I mean, it's definitely changed over the years. Like now I'm at a point where my team runs the business. I am in the store a day and a half a week. I still do things from home for sure, which is great because it does allow me to do like, you know, wherever I am, if I'm on vacation or if I'm at home or whatever. But I mean, we've got to the point where they know more than I do. When people ask me questions, I'm like, oh, okay, hold on, text Nicole. Like, oh, well, we know what's good about this, or what's the difference between whatever. You know, people think that I still know, and I really don't. Like, I've got myself to a point where they're running it for me. And yes, I'm still coming up with the big ideas and what's next, and how can we, you know, do something, a marketing idea or whatever it is. But the day to day, I mean, I've really worked myself out of it, and they're running the show.
Yeah. And that just shows how important your team is. Because if you didn't have the right people on your team, that would not happen, right?
It would not happen. And it's my team, and then it's people outside my team. There are people out there that know way more than I do about certain things. So why am I spending my time trying to figure those things out when I can hire them to do it well, efficiently, you know, and they're going to do a much better job, and the return is probably going to be much greater. It may cost me more upfront, but the investment is worth it. And so it's just recognizing what your strengths are, leaning into your strengths, and pushing everything else to the people who can handle it, who can do it much better than you can.
I love that. And that is something that I talk about all the time. If you listen to the podcast or if you follow social media, if you don't like something or you're not good at it, and you can tell I'm a farm kid, but I say like farm it out, like send it to somebody else to do. I have a commerce degree, and the thought of doing my books or my GST return like makes me sick to my stomach. I hate doing it. So I pay somebody else to do it. And then I spend my time doing something else that can make me money or is going to help me to expand or whatever it happens to be, right?
Absolutely. It's one of the hardest things I think as a business owner is realizing the difference between an investment and an expense. Because you look at things because it's so you're very money conscious because you need money to survive in business. And so it's like, well, you know, should I spend the whatever amount of money that it would cost, or I could just do it myself. But you have to realize that's also your time. So yes, you may be, you know, saving a little bit, probably not doing it as well as somebody else will, right? So it's just wrapping your mind around that it's not an expense, it is an investment, and you're probably going to get a much better return when you do farm it out.
I love that because it's so true, right? And when you were talking before about people asking you questions and you helping them out, and now you're coaching people, it's your time. Like, we don't think about time as money, but it is, right?
Yeah.
Time is money. And you have to either be A, compensated for that, or B, I love how you say, consider that an investment, not an expense, because it is it's an investment in your business that you're going to get back in a larger return somewhere else.
For sure.
That is fantastic advice. That is going to be a social media post. I can tell you right now.
Yay.
So make sure. So, and obviously now you're 17 years in, like freedom. Like I know you don't sit at home and watch TV all day. Like I know you, and that's not your thing, but you talked about freedom, and how great does that feel to have that freedom, right? To work from home, to go on a holiday and not be stressing out about every 2 minutes what's happening in your business.
Yeah. And I don't want to make it sound like I've been in this mentality for a long time, because I really think it wasn't until COVID, that I really, exactly. That I really took that to heart, and I really, really focused on what do I want and how can I achieve it? And I have been doing this for a very long time. And so setting boundaries, and they're more personal boundaries that, with what I am willing to do and what I'm willing, what I'm not willing to do, and enjoying some of the freedom that you can get from owning your own business. So, 15 years into it, I mean, I wouldn't recommend maybe waiting that long. It probably took me a lot longer than it should have, but I am almost there now. And it feels a lot better to set those boundaries, to not feel guilt. Like, guilt is a huge thing as a business owner, right?
Huge.
And so
Huge.
don't, to get over that guilt about, not being there every day, going on vacations, and just enjoying the freedom that you can, because there's going to be times when you cannot do that. There are going to be times, that you are pulled in, and you're pulled in hard, and you have to work every single day, and you have to work through the crisis or whatever it is that's happening. So you need to enjoy the freedom that you can when you can. And I can say that the last couple of years, I have been doing that a lot more. So it's really good.
The guilt point is such a great thing because every entrepreneur feels that. I have felt, everybody has, because you think, well, if I take this time off, I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm not gonna be able to do that. I'm gonna have to pay somebody to do this. I'm gonna get behind on that. It's just easier if I don't do it. Right. But you don't realize how important it is to take the time, right? Like, especially taking, maybe it's an hour a day. I don't know. It could be a week holiday or whatever it is. But I think that we all feel that guilt, and that it's not even pressure, but I think putting pressure on ourselves that, if you're not there or if you don't do something, the world's going to end. And guess what? It's not. Right? It doesn't.
And it's so true. I think that entrepreneurs are really good for this. We just put a lot of pressure on ourselves. It's sort of the nature of who we are as business people. And so it's not external. It's not coming from anybody else. It's completely my own doing. And I recognize that. It's just learning to work through that and being okay with letting things go and taking advantage of this time, whatever that is. And being okay letting other people take control of your business too.
Yes.
Like, that's
delegating, right? Like, delegating things. And guess what? It might not be done exactly the way you would have done it or exactly the way that you wanted it done, but taking those steps to have other people in your business do some tasks, it helps them grow as an employee, right?
Yeah.
And more responsibility and more involved in the business. And it takes that time off of you. And sometimes I would be like that, like, oh, that's not the way I would have done it. But okay, in my head, I obviously wouldn't have said that to my staff. But then afterwards, it got such great, people were like, oh, I love this. And I'm like, oh, so I should ask my team to do more things more, right? Because you don't know until you do it. And
for sure.
Beneficial, for sure. I mean, on your brain and your body and your business, everything. So
for sure.
Yeah, definitely a great piece of advice there. Do you have a most important lesson you can share? Or things that you're like, if you're an entrepreneur, you must do this or know this?
I don't know that I have a most important lesson. I just want to send the message out there, because I know so many people wrap themselves up in it so tightly, is that you are not your business. You are independent of your business. It is not who you are. It is what you do. And so to separate those two things just mentally is, again, freeing, because again, as entrepreneurs, we tend to engulf everything and take it all on and associate ourselves as like this. It's part of our identity. You are not your business. And so any successes, celebrate. Any failures, learn from them, but they don't define you. And I think that, to me, is the most important thing that I think about when I go through anything, is that I am not my business. This is what I do. This is what I love. I love creating. I love, just the whole vision of like what can be done next, but it's not who I am.
I love that. And right before we started recording, you and I were just talking about that. And I said, this is my identity, right? And we were just talking about that. And it's really hard to separate those things because people will literally come up to you and be like, oh, you're the girl from wherever. Oh, you're the owner of that. And like, that's what they see you as, right? Especially now with social media and things when literally your face is on that business, right? So that is great advice that I will take because that's been something definitely that's been hard for me. So
Yeah.
good,
You know,
good there.
and be proud of everything that you do and being associated with the amazing work that you've done. And that's all great, but you are so much more than that.
Yeah, that's so true. Is there something you would wish you had known, or maybe that ties back to the identity thing, but or anything else that you're like, oh, geez, I wish I would have known this or known it sooner? I know lots of people are saying, oh, I wish I would have known that 5 years before I learned it.
Right. Oh, there's lots of things. I'm still learning things. And it's funny because the whole joke is, 15 years later, we come up with a process for this. So, I mean, there's always things that you're learning and that, I wish I would have done this. I don't know if I would go back and wish I would have known anything about business because it is a million times harder than I ever thought it would ever be. And knowing that maybe going into it, I don't know if I knew everything that was going to happen or like the things that I would be dealing with. I don't know that would have been good. I wanted to fulfill my dream of being a business owner and entrepreneur. And I'm glad I learned things along the way, but I don't know that I would have wanted to know them beforehand. So I feel like there's a time to learn everything and you learn them at whenever that time is right for you. And I'm happy the way things have played out. So as long as you're learning from what's going on, right? And making changes when you need to.
Exactly. And you're going to have great successes, but there's going to be failures too.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There's going to be failures. And we have all talked to those business owners. And I remember like literally laughing in my head, not out loud, but other business owners saying like, oh, everything's fantastic. Oh, no, and like just unicorns and butterflies. And I was like, get real. Like, that's not how it is. And there's days like that for sure. But there's days that are really hard, right? But it's learning from those hard days and the good days. Taking lessons from the good days too, right?
For sure.
That helps.
And I think a lot of times you don't want to admit. It's hard to admit to other people that maybe things aren't going the way you had planned or there have been some challenges that you're working through. And so I think that as business owners, the more open and honest and vulnerable we are with each other, the more helpful it's going to be for you and for everybody else. So, I've never been one to be like, oh yeah, everything's fine. I'm more the type like, oh my goodness, So yeah, it's just, I think it's time to be real and honest and vulnerable with the people around you, with other business owners, because that's when you can get the help too. Right? When you lean into the support that you have and you can get advice from other people that have been through it. So,
yeah, no, that's great. That's great advice. And I can tell you, and I'm sure you'll say the same thing, that there's more good days than hard days, right? And as time goes on, the hard days get fewer and farther between. But it's just learning. It's learning and progressing and growing as a business person and entrepreneur and having help and guidance and assistance from people like yourself, right, that have been through it. So really, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
From me personally, but also from everyone listening. Okay, so Jor, where can people find you? I know you've got Instagram yourself and Cravings. So what are your, is Instagram the best place, website? Where can people that want to learn more about your business or you go to?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram kind of sends you everywhere. So I've got Shop Cravings, YXE, and then just Jordana Jacobson, which is my personal Instagram. So either one of those you can reach me and, that takes you to my website and everything else. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jordana. I really appreciate it. I know I've got some great lessons to share on social media here too. So stay tuned for those, but thank you. I appreciate it as a host, but also as a friend. And thank you to everyone that listened today. Make sure you check out Jordana and check out her store as well, because you can order online. So even if you don't live close, you can have something shipped to you. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.